More letters. Obviously, these students all know that I love basketball because it's a part of the story, obviously. But yeah, just thank you for giving all of us an amazing speech. I know one certain person in my life can relate to it. Thank you. Ethan, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and tell us about your life. I really enjoyed it. Simple, you know. Some students, it might not be that life-changing event, and I understand that. When I first started, that was the goal. I wanted to inspire every student in that gym, every student in that auditorium. I wanted every single one. But the further and further I got into my career, you start to realize out of a school of 1,000, if I can get 750 to actually think about it and change how they see the rest of this world, and maybe 250 to change how they actually react to the speech, and another 50 to 100 that actually do something about it, and then 10% of those that change their entire life from that moment. I get greedy. Everybody says, oh man, if you can change one life. I think if that's all you're trying to do at a speech, that's setting the bar low. Like I feel ashamed if I only impact one person at a speech. I feel like I failed miserably. I'm there to impact every single student. I also had to change my philosophy too, because the first couple of years, it was always the knuckleheads in the back, because that's where I would have been. The ones who were laughing and joking and pointing and stuff. That's only 10% of the audience. And so I'm sitting here and I would speak to them and I'd find the angle at them, and then I'd kind of ignore like 90% of the audience to try to focus on those 10%. But I realized over the years, like, okay, cool, that 10%, they might not listen anyway. So why neglect the 90% that are actually sitting in their seats and paying attention and want to learn something and want to be inspired and want to take something home? Like, those are the ones you need to speak to. So I started ignoring those 10% in the back. And what actually ended up happening was, over the years, those 10% would come down and be like, hey, Mr. Fisher, I was listening the whole time. But I know when I was 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid, and I had if somebody would have came in like me, and I would have been emotionally immature and poking and prodding because it would have been uncomfortable. Because I'd have been like, man, I'm making those choices. So I would have been reacting to my friends trying to play it off, when the reality is I'm sitting there going, man, that's me. And I understand student psychology now on levels that I don't think most people understand. Like, I've had over 30,000 conversations with students. 30,000, easy. Because they all line up after. And so out of all those 750 speeches, you think about, sometimes it's 100. I got pictures of like 150, almost 200 kids waiting in line. I've been in sessions where we actually locked this was a college, we actually locked the ADs and the coaches out, and we sat for almost 3 hours. About 300 student athletes and I, just for 3 hours chopping it up. Like, that is what I care about. It's hearing all these student stories. So when I say I understand these stories on levels like most of the school counselors don't understand, yeah, you might have to have 1,500 kids and you're one or two counselors for that entire school, but you might see 5 to 6 kids per day. That's cool. That adds up. I see 200 in a day. And then I got 200 in the evening who are texting after. Not always that much. Sometimes I don't get any. Every school is different. But there's certain communities where it hits so hard that it is like 4,000 students in a week, and I've got 650 emails, and I've spoke to 2,000 of them in a line. And like, I hear more about their lives than anybody understands. Like, I know what they're going through from what they tell me. They lost their grandfather and they were their best friend. Like, any story you can imagine, I've probably heard. But through that, I understand who these individuals are in these stories. And it doesn't matter where you grow up. It doesn't matter if you're in Idaho or Virginia or Florida or Texas. Every place I go to, everybody's the same. Situations might be a little bit different. Their surroundings might be a little different. The socioeconomic situation might be a little bit different. But behind all of that, everybody's the same. Every student's facing the same obstacles, the same reservations about who they are, what they want to do in this life, how their family reacts to them, how their friends react to them, how the teachers do, their coaches, how they're going through a relationship, how they're breaking up in a relationship. Their friends picking on them even though they're popular and they're cool, and now they got friends who are trying to get them to vape and they don't want to, but they don't want to lose their friends. Kids who've been using drugs and alcohol since they're 13 and they're 17, they're like, man, how do I get off? I don't want to do this anymore. But there's a psychology behind all of it. People don't just do random things. We're all programmed based off of our experiences and what we do and surrounding ourselves. We are programmed to do certain things. So I understand how a lot of these students and their minds work. Same as for the college students. I might not get 200 college students waiting in line. I might get 25 to 30. Sometimes more. Sometimes it's entire teams. Sometimes it's multiple teams, and I've got, 100 student athletes wait. Every situation is different. Sometimes I don't have many students wait because there's a vibe about the school or the university about keeping things close-knit, and nobody talks about those issues. But as soon as you break through and talk to one or two of them, you find out that the entire community feels that way, but they just don't want to be stigmatized in that community about talking about those issues. Which leads to a whole nother thing about getting jobs in the future. And I just saw a gentleman post on LinkedIn that he got fired for a drug case 9 years ago from his job. Like, all this stuff it all relates to each other. And again, that's why I think my middle school, high school stuff is so important. Because the stuff that you're doing in middle school and high school, you don't think it matters. It does. It follows you for the rest of your life. The choices I made in middle school, the choices I made in high school destroyed my future. But I was a punk kid. I didn't think about that stuff. Now again, it's part of it is nature and nurture and how quick your brain develops, and mine didn't develop until I was in my mid-20s. I'm a slow developer. So I wasn't set out right in middle school and high school. Physically, mentally, I wasn't there. So it just, people don't understand how important those moments, and like I talked about one of my teammates yesterday, trying to help. He was more mature as a sophomore in high school than I was as a senior. And then you see all the stuff about Jalen Brunson and how he made the choice, and his parents told him you have three buckets basically. You got basketball, grades, or social. You got to pick 2 out of the 3. Well, I didn't think like that. So, but yeah, man, these letters, and this is only what, 8, 9, 10 letters, and I've got like thousands of these, so keep them coming.